Hi, welcome to More by Naviam, a Maximo podcast. I'm Steven Shull, your host, and today I'm joined in person in Cincinnati with Phil Runion.
Hi, I'm Phil Runion, back again as the Maximo Technical Product Manager, and here today to talk about configuring your Maximo system, make it feel a little more like home. It's one of the features I was most excited about really with 9.1. 9.2, the feature stays and we can build on it, and really excited to share what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so first we're going to kind of walk through what the changes are going to look like, and then we'll actually implement this in one of our demo systems. So, Phil, you want to give a quick intro of what we're going to be doing here and some of the flexibility that the MAS product suite has that we didn't have before in 7.6?
Yeah, and really, I would say it was in 7.6. In 7.6, we were putting logos in the top of the Maximo screen. We were adding text to say, hey, this is a development environment. You could add in CSS files, build it into your ear, redeploy your ear, and it was all there. What IBM's really done with these features is made it so that you don't have to take downtime and you can really easily configure at the application suite level um, things that make your Maximo not look so generic. Everybody in the application suite is going to have the black background, it's going to say application suite, and it's not going to really feel like a piece of software your company has personalized and configured for your use. It's just going to feel like everybody else's Maximo. So really the thing behind these features is as an administrator, you can go in, change it even prod versus non-prod, and change spacing, change colors, change the way all of Maximo looks, all without ever changing the ear, all without changing anything in the back end. It's all a front end configuration, which makes it really accessible for anybody who's interested in doing this with the right access to go in and do it. So the first thing we're looking at here is really just the top bar. Um, if we go into configuration as a suite admin, we can input a company name and a product name and change those on the top black bar of your Maximo to be whatever you need. So one of the things I like to do to kind of trick it is the first one isn't bold and the second one is bold. So I like to put a space in one of them because I usually only want one set of text. And then I'll put, hey, this is the Naviam demo system, or this is my sandbox system. Sometimes I'll put like, hey, this is a sandbox with oil and gas deployed, or in general, like here in this screenshot, I'll just put internal demo. The other thing you can do on this screen is upload a logo. So you can see it right there. It's a little tiny small Naviam logo. Um, and we'll go a little bit later in the conversation on making that just a little bit bigger, look a little bit nicer. But really, this tab allows you to do both of those, put it in there, hit save, see your changes instantly, and see what happens next and see how you want to expand. Now, Stephen, I know you brought a demo system today.
Yeah,
Do you we want to go in and really just show exactly how easy this is?
yeah. So we're going to start here. So I'm going to share my screen.
And I think it's important to point out too, everything we're going to be talking about today is there in the 9.1 systems. So you don't have to upgrade to 9.2 to take advantage of this. You do need to be on 9.1 for most of this to work though.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've already opened up, logged in as one of our administrator users. I've already gone into the system configuration, already opened up the user interface customization. And so, as Phil mentioned here, we can type in something like Naviam demo. I can upload a picture, so I can go upload something from our Naviam logo. And I hit this save and publish. And as I hit the save and publish, you'll actually immediately see the header bar change without any downtime, without anybody having to log out of Maximo, etc. They'll just automatically pick up the change. Um,
The other thing I really like about this setting is it is at the suite level. So if you're refreshing your managed database from like a production to a non-prod, this isn't in the managed database, so it stays. It's one thing you don't have to worry about staying persistent in your lower environments because it's at the core level. If you're fancier than I am and you figured out how to refresh your core, well, then you'll have to do it. But I don't know of anybody that's actually doing that at this point.
yeah.
So that will stay if you put your dev or whatever in your top bar.
Right. So obviously, really easy, really kind of important feature. But I think the next thing when we start getting into CSS, I think that's where you can really make it tailor it to your own preferences. So you want to kind of give a quick intro. You did it already, but essentially, historically, you've always been able to do CSS configurations. It's just never been good because you need downtime to really do it properly.
Yeah, you're either modifying it on every node of your servers in the deployed area, redeploying UI ears or all your ears. It made testing rather difficult too, in my opinion, just because you were out there, hey, help me change this. Even if you're doing it in the live ear,
Yeah.
I was always restarting. I don't know if you ever had to, but you were restarting the ears and then you were refreshing the cache of your browser and hoping it all stuck and it worked and you weren't going to spend an hour adjusting the color of a top bar.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, right, as much as we always wanna do our best and make sure everything's perfect, right, there's always weird situations where you're like, "Is this related to something that I've done?" And having this nice off switch where you can be like, "Hey, I'm gonna temporarily disable all of my CSS configurations, determine is this an IBM bug or is this something that we've inadvertently caused," right? Maybe we've overwritten some CSS property and that CSS property is causing spacing issues, color issues, whatever it might be.
And so I think the other thing to point out on this screenshot is this is just a tab over from the header stuff you were just showing. And then past that, it's really all the CSS work you want to do. Um, I, in general, see like 20, 30 lines of CSS in here. I've talked to other Maximo users that have a couple hundred lines in here. They're really starting to tailor down their Maximo system to be exactly what they want, whether that's going back to look like 7.6 a little more or just optimizing spacing, getting the colors right. With the examples I've brought today, really I've focused on what's the top bar, the side bar, the large like paintbrush. How do I make this coloring look right? Um, but one of the slides in here is showing how we can find every element, use your browser to inspect it, and change really anything you want in the Maximo CSS.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is kind of walking through some of the CSX examples of things that we could change, like the login page image, stuff like that. This is what you were kind of just talking about that I think is kind of really important to emphasize. A lot of Maximo administrators are not HTML developers, right? Like they don't necessarily
I'm
deal
not
with
either.
I don't necessarily deal with CSS changes a lot, right? But when you're trying to figure out what rules are applying the style that you want to modify, the developer tools in your web browser is a great way to do that, where you can right click the element that you're interested in changing, inspect it, and it will tell you where the styles are coming from. Because sometimes it's not even just one place. You may actually have 4 or 5 different rules that are actually modifying it. And so this will give you the ability to kind of see what's being applied, and this also gives you another way that you can try to test locally your changes before you actually even say them at the MAS layer. So if you want to see what would be the impact if I change the color or if I change the font size or font type, right? You can do all that in your developer tools, get it the way that you like, and then actually go and persist those changes.
Yeah, I've had like results. I feel like I can come in here and I'll change something, and I often will try to change a color. For example, I'll pick hot pink, and I'll try to change it to hot pink before I go to Naviam blue or whatever it might be. And I'll change it in my developer, it'll look great. Then I go apply it to the CSS and it's like, "Oh, something overwrote you somewhere else."
Yeah.
So I do think it is great, like, finding the element, seeing visually, "Hey, this is what it's gonna look like if I can achieve this." Um, there's always a translation moment that I'm hesitant about, and I'm, like, not so sure if it's gonna work or not when I go from doing it in the developer tool to actually doing it as a CSS, code. It's the most frustrating part with all of this, besides when you go from, like, 9.0 to 9.1 or 9.1 to 9.2, IBM changes the tags, and then you have to go research and
Yeah.
figure out, "Oh, I used to make this hot pink, now it's black again. What happened?"
Yeah. Is there any more you want to do on this before we actually show some of the CSS rules and walk through
No,
the
I think
specific
if you
examples?
want to pull up
Yeah.
the demo and we can kind of work through some of these examples. The first two you showed were both on the login screen. That might be a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although it does mean you have to log in and out, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, no, we can open another tab. So right now I have all of our CSS turned off, right? So we've deployed these examples. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn it on so you can kind of see night and day. One of the things I want to call out before I hit save is you'll see like the logo here is really small. One of the changes that Phil developed was a way to actually make that image bigger so that better represents the brand, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just
Can
gonna
you highlight that in there? I think it's just like an REM5. What I found when I was testing is if you made the image wider, it proportionally got taller. So I'm really just
yeah.
doubling the width of the image and it looks nice in there.
Yeah, so here's kind of oh, that's the background image. Where's the logo? Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So yeah, you made it 6 REM. Close, but
Ah, look, memory is good. I got the topic right.
all right. So
Number
I'm
one.
gonna save this, and immediately all this stuff changed, right? So you talked about the background color, right? Instead of the maximum black, it's a blue that matches our color.
Hmm.
The Naviam logo is obviously much easier to see. Um, and again, I didn't log out. I didn't restart the system. This isn't like, hey, it's a recorded podcast and we did something behind the scenes.
No,
Instantly, I
it's
see
that
the
easy.
changes.
And I mean,
Um,
you could go in there and grab one of those blues and make it red and tweak it as easy as you want to be. And what I found works really well with our production and non-prods is doing different colors even for the different non-prods. So that if you're working in train and then you flip over to a tab that's in like UAT system, you visually see, oh, I was working in the blue one and now I'm in the green one. I think that makes a huge difference in just eliminating mistakes besides making it look nice.
yeah. There's a couple other things just because we were finding the logo piece that I actually want to highlight since it's right above it, right? Is we often get the help links are very useful, right? But you don't necessarily always want your end users to have it. It could be noise to them. And so what we've done here is you've actually shown how you can go and hide those items while still leaving the help menu alone, right? So normally this will be much more verbose. Now we just have documentation and about. And just to kind of show you if I turn this back off, right? I go back in here and you can see we have all these other links like request and enhancement videos, etc. So if you don't necessarily want your end users to see the request enhancement piece, it's something you can easily turn off.
Yeah, I thought the big one for us, right, is the support. Most of our customers, actually, I think all of our customers don't do support tickets directly with IBM. We want them to come to us because we might have the solution and we don't need them to go to IBM. We want them to come into our system. So hiding that support link, something I thought was pretty cool, along with some of the other noise. That whole section came from an ex IBM developer that just in conversation it came up like, hey, could we do something there? And I swear it was 5 minutes later. I'm sure it took him longer than that, but rose colored glasses.
Yeah.
He came back and was like, yeah, of course, just eliminate all the things you don't want. Why not? And I think that's pretty cool as a CSS change, not actually
Yeah.
changing the back end code. You can hide. I'm pretty sure you could add too, although I've never tried.
Um, we talked about the backgrounds a little bit. Again, we're just kind of swapping out the images for our own image. I don't know that there's a lot to talk about there. Um, and then the rest is really just kind of the colors, right? We're really trying to control what they are. This editor is actually really nice. So inside of the actual editor, if you're trying to pick your colors, right? You can obviously do this in a lot of different tools, but you can actually do this in here while you're
Mhm.
modifying the CSS and try to find the right hue of blue or black or red, whatever you're trying to look for specifically. You can kind of do it here, which is nice.
Something I found to be even more helpful when working on client systems, you go back to that developer tool,
Hmm.
and at least in Chrome, you can find the color and it has an eyedropper. So you can go
Yeah.
sample um, whatever website you're on. So just working with customers, sometimes I'll go to their like corporate website and get their exact blue or their exact green without they're ever, sharing a hex code.
Yeah.
And then I have that hex code and I can just layer it across the CSS file.
All right.
I think the second one there, the login page image,
Mm-hmm.
somebody shared this with me. So we're taking 100% of the space and then just subtracting out a couple margin REMs. Still don't know what REM is. I think it's like a pixel. Uh, Probably I should Google that one at some point. But that actually allows that image width on your login page to be dynamic. Doesn't have to be static. Again, I am not an HTML developer, so somebody shared that with me, and I'm like, oh, 100%, we should use that.
All right. And then you also want to cover before I just log out, just kind of show the result of the login
Um,
image.
I mentioned when we were talking about doing it in the developer tools,
Mhm.
how sometimes I can make it work with in the browser, but it doesn't work in the CSS. The important tag in some of these examples helps. If it doesn't work the first time, my next thing I try is put that important tag, and it basically prioritizes my changes over the out of the box changes. So it's not on all of them, but it's definitely on a couple of these examples because I needed it.
Yeah, it's all gets back to CSS specificity, right? So the way that CSS works is the more granular your CSS rule is, the more likely it is to apply. Now, again, if somebody like if IBM for some reason uses important themselves, then you have to use important. It's just how that thing works. But normally, as long as we can be as specific as possible, we should be good. But it's a good thing to call out is again,
Yeah.
because most people here are not gonna be CSS, developers, right? They're not gonna be dealing with the HTML often, they're just trying to get something quickly. If you can't get something to work, the important flag is a good way
It's
to
at least a good
override.
try.
Yeah, yeah. Alright, I'm just gonna log out really quickly just so I can show what this looks like from the login perspective.
And Steven, I'm sure you've had customers ask for
Oh,
changes along these lines. Are there other things you've done that you're like, oh yeah, that worked really well?
so just
But you're
realized
panicking, my image doesn't work.
yeah, no, we'll have to check our image link. But to answer your question, there have been scenarios. So like one of the customer scenarios that I had, they wanted to be able to actually have a table minimize upon save. Right. So
Okay.
by default, the table would auto expand. And so I actually figured out the rule that was required to have it minimize automatically. So I did that through CSS, which was kind of fun.
So
Um,
what, they were able to, like, put a work log in
yeah,
and save, and it would shrink the work log setting?
correct. Another one was, in the, main page, the bulletin board doesn't auto expand, and
Mhm.
so they wanted to automatically expand the bulletin board so that you could see the message, rather than expecting the users to kind of have to click, to kind of expand it.
So you're really getting beyond and into, "Let's enhance the functionality."
Yeah.
My brain would have jumped to, like, "Okay, how do we do that with automation script?"
Yeah,
And you're saying CSS is good enough, get us there,
yeah.
in some
For
cases.
some cases, correct, yeah, yeah. So a couple of other things, we're gonna go into the configuration. So initially, we kind of started here, so we kind of skipped this. There were a couple of things on your list that we didn't really talk about. Um, the guided tours, the surveys. A lot of our customers don't want these. Kind of similar back to the concept of each customer is going to have their own processes. They're going to have their own preference for how things look, how people do their daily job. And so these guided tours, while they're very helpful for people that are not experiencing Maximo, it also can sometimes confuse people if they're not familiar with Maximo and the way the guided tour works. It doesn't actually cover what you can or can't do. It
Right.
becomes
They're out of the box canned guided tours. At least in the first couple versions of them too. If you weren't logged in as an admin, you might not have access to the app they're trying to give you a tour of.
yeah,
Sure hope that's fixed, but I almost always turn them off at this point, so I can't say if it is or isn't.
yeah,
I also, talking with a couple IBM people, I don't even remember who it was, said there's a potential that someday we could put our own guided tours in. I think that would be kind of a cool feature. We could say, here's how you put a work order in the Naviam way.
Yeah, behind the scenes, it uses a service called WalkMe, and so you definitely, in theory, you could swap it out with our own. You would need your own licensing and stuff. I think it's more of a licensing problem more than anything else, but
We could add a tour of Data Studio, just kind of highlighting that. I think would be cool.
yeah,
Not everybody has seen it, worked with it, even on our internal teams. It's not super familiar. Put it in a training system at least.
yeah, that's good feedback. Alright. Any closing remarks you wanna add?
I think probably the best one here is I have written a couple of blogs on this exact topic. It's a three-part series that's out there. Part one covers system properties. We didn't go over them today, but it does allow you to change some things easy with a system property. Same idea, right? Check a flag, make things change. Um, the second one goes over some of the header and background images. And then the third has all of the CSS examples we've gone through today. I think it's a great place to start. Hopefully, we can link it in the description. You can jump there. You can see these examples. Go try them out in your non-prod and see how many different fun examples like minimizing the work logs you
Yep.
can come up with. The other thing I would say is these do seem to change between major versions. So if you are going to start doing CSS, I'd leave yourself comments. So all my examples, I use the slash star, and I'll say something like adjust the left menu's color as a comment, and then do my tag with the color. I'd leave yourself those breadcrumbs and also give yourself time during each minor upgrade. So when you go to 9.2, you go to 9.3, give yourself time to just look through each of the items, verify it's actually working, so that your users aren't reverted back unintentionally during an upgrade. I think in most people's cases, you could probably spend an hour reading the comments and verifying, and it'd be good enough. But it is another upgrade step. I think most people would need to consider with this.
Yeah, good feedback. Alright, with that, we'll see you in the next episode.